The Last of Us Season 2 has officially ended, and there are so many things to talk about. This has easily been one of the most controversial shows of the last decade, at least this season specifically, with a lot of the casting choices, the story choices. I want to talk about all of it here as I'm talking about all my thoughts on The Last of Us Season 2. I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Both those any more time, let's get right into it. I did do a mid-season review, so if you want all of my spoiler-filled thoughts on specific episodes in the first half of this show, you can check out my previous video. But here I want to more so talk about the entirety of the season and kind of the future of the show, obviously focusing on the second half. In terms of the back half of this show, I think the pacing is honestly the main thing that threw the entire series off. We recently got news that they're going to stretch Game 2, so The Last of Us Part 2, into a Season 4, and this makes sense. Obviously, after the finale, we saw that at the very end, we're going to be focusing on Abby's story, and I want to talk more about Abby at the very end of this video because I thought the finale in itself was pretty ballsy. I thought they made a couple of really great choices, but all of it is just diminished, and the pacing of it and the heft of it is all dwindled down because of the overall pacing of the back half of the series, making everything kind of just feel unimportant. And right after Joel dies, I do feel a sense of aggression from Ellie, and I really like the way that they play it out. But then once we get to Seattle, it feels like more so just a romance between Dina and Ellie, and that's not really the direction I liked, especially when we're talking specifically in the midpoint of the season. But obviously in the finale, after the flashback where they recontextualize a lot of the relationship between Joel and Ellie, then we get to Ellie is actually driven by revenge. So in that aspect, eventually we got to that point in time. I just think it takes way too long to get there. Near the end of the season, they're trying to treat it like the ending of a game, but we've not gone through nearly enough story development, and they're trying to use the same emotional strings and confrontational sequences as they do. They just don't really hit as hard. I want to specifically talk about this flashback sequence because I know a lot of people were pissed off at the pace from when they got to Seattle, when we found out that Ellie and Dina were having the kid, up until the flashback scene where it feels like they are just dilly-dallying a whole episode before that. And there are other interesting elements. They introduce a lot of different aspects of the world, which again, all of that I mentioned in my mid-season review. I quickly want to stay on episode 6 for a second because I feel like more than the finale, this really does recontextualize the entire series, and that's what I like about this episode. It is singularly one of the best episodes of the entire show in my opinion. I never want to hear that Bella Ramsey can't act, and episode 6 of The Last of Us Season 2 is easily Pedro Pascal's career best performance. If he doesn't get some sort of Emmy or some sort of recognition for this performance, I'll be so mad because this is the pinnacle of his career. I don't think anything in the future is even coming close to that. But getting back to the whole Bella Ramsey Ellie of it all, I genuinely don't think that the actress is the problem with Ellie. And this is where we get into my problem with season 2, especially compared to season 1. And this is coming from a guy that hasn't even played the video games. To me, you look at everything that's been built up in the first season, and you even look at the flashback episode in episode 6, and you look at the overall aggregation of Ellie's actions through season 2, Ellie is not nearly aggressive enough. There's too much of a soft spot at the core of Ellie's character for me to really be convinced that the revenge of her trying to kill Abby has taken over. There are singular moments where she feels fueled by revenge, like I believe it was the end of episode 5, but other than that, there's literally nothing else that could convince you that she really wants to kill Abby. I wish the season was longer, but at the same time, I don't really know what they're cooking, so it's hard for me to understand how much they're spreading out the story. I don't really know where we are at the end of season 2. I don't want any spoilers in the comments for the game, but if someone could contextualize like what the fuck, I mean, obviously I know Ellie doesn't die, but I don't understand what kind of cliffhanger that is, especially if now in season 3 we're just gonna look back at the entire show. We're looking at Seattle day 1. It really just feels like the core of this show's problems comes down to really poorly paced out character motivations and leading to really bad character development. Anyways, I think the first half of this season is really good, but it dives off of a cliff, not even specifically after Joel's death, which I know a lot of neckbeards have been complaining that after episode 2 the show has not been the same. I don't agree with that at all, and I still think there are so many elements of this show that work so well. I think Jeffrey Wright's character and the way that they build out this world is absolutely phenomenal. I thought the Jackson War and the implications of that were also handled really well. And actually, for the first half of the finale, where we do actually start to see Ellie being fueled by revenge and going off on her own and leaving the help that Tommy needed, and all of these singular things that make us actually understand that Ellie is fueled by bloodlust. All of these different things made me rethink of what episodes 5 and 4 were. Once we get to Seattle and once we understand that, oh my god, she's actually putting a pregnant Dina at risk, obviously you can be mad at that character choice because that's just not how Ellie is in the game. But they were really building it up in the finale to where she was going to take things into her own hands. But then you look forward at season 3 and apparently, according to sources, it's just going to be a season 3 that's focused completely on Abby's backstory. I know there's been a commentary about prestige television a lot since the 2020s has started, but it is absolutely insane, especially with the show like The Last of Us. I understand how difficult making film and TV is, but when you're trying to prioritize this story, especially the creative direction that part 2 of The Last of Us went into, there is no reason that we should be waiting another 2 years for 6 to 7 episodes. We're gonna get in 2 more years an Abby story that has nothing to do with the main character of Ellie, unless they end up just doing like 2 episodes of backstory. Maybe that'll be the case, but according to people that have worked on the show, the entire season focuses on Abby. I don't want to talk too much else about season 3 of the show because we don't 100% know any details, but I want to get back to the Seattle stuff because I think overall the lack of direction once we get to Seattle is the biggest problem, but I don't think the second Seattle episode is all that bad. We definitely start to see out of character mannerisms and a lack of direction for Ellie, but I think the rest of the world is actually built out really, really well. I know the introduction of that cult group was done a lot differently than it's done in the game, but I found them to be very, very fearful. I thought the other cities that were introduced, other characters and other dynamics between groups were also executed really well. But then we get to episode 6 where it's a flashback and it just kind of feels misplaced. And then we get to the finale where I do think we're getting to a very solid point with Ellie. And we are getting to a character point that I think matters and means a lot. But the pace to get here sucked so bad. So it feels like we're finally at that core of revenge in this character. But at what cost? And it took how long? At the end of the day, I still really enjoy The Last of Us as a series overall, but I think it's just because I don't have an experience with the video game where it feels like all of this is just executed way better. This just has the most inconsistent writing and character themes. I wish this series would just stick to one track and expand upon that because that's what it did in season 1 and it flourished. I think the game just has so much amazing material that they're really struggling to capture it all in a series of television. Overall, I'm going to give The Last of Us Season 2 a 7.5 out of 10. Again, I'm still very positive on it. I still really, really like it, but I can admit there are a lot of core flaws, and if the next season doesn't really deliver, I don't know if I'm going to keep watching this series because the quality dip from season 1 to 2 has just been so drastic. But nevertheless, as always, please let me know all of your thoughts on The Last of Us Season 2 in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.